Looking back at my years in middle school and high school, there's one moment that I always go back to in particular that really strives as to why I chose to go down the path of being an English educator. I was 12 years old at the time and had just found this amazing book series called The Hunger Games. And ever since then, there was no doubt in my mind that I knew I wanted to be able to show other people the beauty in finding true meaning and using books and literature to do so much more than just words on a page. Now, there's this one quote that Katniss states that has stuck with me for so long that it's probably going to be written in my classroom one day, hopefully. And she states, "I stare into the mirror as I try to remember who I am and who I am not." Thinking about this quote and how it can relate to how I want to teach English is so critical. Now, being an emergent educator in the 21st century has its ups and downs because we're dealing with such controversial issues in the world and so much uncertainty that we have to address this to students of all different ages. And presenting this information in front of different demographics can be challenging, but as an educator and as an emergent educator in the 21st century, it's critical to incorporate the outside world into our lesson planning and using texts to help students find out who they truly are and how they can use these literature pieces and benefit themselves outside of the classroom because of it. My teaching philosophy states that it is critical to incorporate the outside world into lesson planning as much as possible. Understanding the importance of teaching children this will overall help them with their academic development. When it comes to bringing the outside world into lesson planning, it is important to understand the benefits of doing so. Focusing curriculum surrounding topics in society such as real-world problems related to controversial issues in the world helps convey the sole purpose of getting students to think critically and making those connections towards the outside world. Now, a big part of why I believe so strongly in this teaching philosophy, it does stem from the overall acceptance of the times that we live in. Now, being an educator in the 21st century is nothing like it was 20 years ago, or even 15 years ago. You can even say 10 years ago for that matter. With every decade and every new set of kids that you get, we have an entire new generation. And having these students be in their adolescent years, every single year they get access to more information that, people never really thought it was that easy to obtain all those years ago. So it's important to take that into consideration with what kind of information that you believe is beneficial for your students to help them learn and how to advance in a classroom setting. Now, using textual pieces that students can relate to more overall can expand the students' comprehension of a given topic and could really put their critical thinking skills to use. Now, let's take a very, very popular book that I had the absolute pleasure of reading when I was myself a freshman in high school, The Lord of the Flies. Now, when it comes to teaching kids about The Lord of the Flies, you really do strive for the message to get across of what power can do to one and how not having a stabilized social structure is completely and utterly destructive amongst a society. And this can be so related to today. Given both lecture lessons of finding the author's purpose or themes, figurative language, everything along those lines in this one text, it also can lead to a deeper conversation when looking at how these events can relate further on to events that are happening in today's society. When we're learning the lines between power and structure, sacrifice, friendship, and savagery, all of these things that this book's teaching us about, they all stem from lessons that we could also use as a way to conduct a safe learning environment about these controversial issues that are happening today. And we can get into a deeper conversation and allow students to use their critical thinking skills when describing these things to them. And it does take a very sophisticated student to be able to comprehend fully what these messages may relate to in today's society. But then again, it's also important as an educator to give them that opportunity. Now, as an educator, it is my responsibility to use this teaching philosophy with structure and give students the chance to express what they feel, what they think about these topics, and be empathetic to my classroom, as this philosophy does surround heavily with topics being brought to the classroom that can be controversial. But when you're allowing students to have their own voice, it gets them more energetic and opens up their minds to self-regulation, and it makes them have more of a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset when it comes to teaching English. Carmen Quignard quotes, "In this class, you will always be expected to connect outside resources to the topics of your writing. These sources could be books, articles, film, music, archives, surveys, lectures, interviews, websites, etc. Writing critically with and from multiple informed sources is perhaps the single most common trademark for all kinds of writing and thinking that is expected of you in academy. However, this does not mean that you write about things that you don't care about.